Alright, hey everybody, this is Dwayne from Lockwood Media. Just doing a little tutorial on how to basically use Blender as a 2D graph program, your utility. So here we are in Blender 2.5. First thing I'm going to do is open up the F-curve editor, graph editor, there we go. And, sorry, first thing I'm going to do is put a keyframe on something. Doesn't really matter what it is or where it is. Graph editor, so now we've got a keyframe here. Let's just choose Y location. Then if I hit N on the keyboard, it brings up our little toolbox here. And we can add a modifier. So right now, there's a single keyframe right here at 1 and 0 basically. And if I click Add Modifier, and then Generator, I can add a polynomial. So this is kind of a goofy looking way of looking at it, but right now it's just 1x plus 0. And then I can change that to x squared, x cubed, x to the fourth. So if I do x squared, just to make it obvious, now I'll change this to 0, and this to 1, and then I can, holding down the control button on the keyboard, and then the middle mouse button, just hold it down and I can drag it down to zoom down and drag it sideways to zoom, change the range and the scale of the x and y axis. And so basically that's it. As we click with the left mouse button and just change the keyframes, you can see in the down here in the lower area in the green box, it's got number 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's the frame that we're on technically. But what it's doing is it's jumping one value at a time. And so we can say I want to go 3x squared plus 4x minus 6, and then that gives us a graph, and we can see what that's going to do. And then the nice thing about it is we can say, well, what does changing the x value in this order 2 polynomial do on the graph? So we can change it to up to 20 or whatever, and we can just see how it shifts the whole curve and in what direction and what area it shifts it in. Likewise with this, we can say, oh, that squishes it together and that flips it around if we go negative. And then this, of course, is our vertical shift. Our Y scale is very small. Let's get it somewhere. So now we can see what effect each of these values has. Same thing if we go to an order 3. Let's change this just to a single 1x cubed. And by scrolling, and I'm just clicking the left mouse button and sliding the mouse back and forth to adjust these values. You can see what effect that has on the curve. And so for somebody who's maybe struggling with visualizing and figuring out some of these types of polynomials in their math class, algebra or whatever calculus they might be studying right now, this is a way of studying what some of these values do and how they affect the curve. So I just thought I'd show you how you could use this as a learning aid, or possibly a teaching tool if you're teaching mathematics. Thanks. Oh, and we can also, if I just see how if I put the mouse in this area right here, and I click and drag down, I can split the window. I'm going to change this back to the 3D view. Now, my cube that I made is way off in the middle of nowhere because we've animated it as such. So I'm going to bring it back here to the center because that's where it's supposed to be at. And so you can see how if I hit N again in this area, it brings up this panel, and it'll give us our basically our Y value, because that's the Y value is what we're animating in this case. So as we go from 0, 1, 2 to 3, we can see how the Y value is affected. And so we can see, well, what is basically what is x cubed plus 3.2x squared minus 7.6x minus 0.1 at x equals 4, y equals 84.7. So this is a little solver that we can use for our mathematics. We can make this as simple or as complex as we want. And we can also make it into a factorized polynomial, which is really convenient and nice. Just drag this out a little bit, you can see our values. So you can see basically how that other polynomial factors, and of course we can modify and change that as we need. So there's a little tool that we can play with. And do some math. And we can, if you want to go somewhere in between whole numbers, we can change this to turn it to no auto snap, and then that'll give us okay. And what else can we do with this? Oh yeah, that's what I was going to show you. So let's just get rid of this. So we're back to our standard, just our straight keyframe at frame 1, nothing happening. We also have these other generators. So that was generator we were looking at, a built-in function. So here we've got a sine wave going from -1 to +1. And right now it's yeah. So it doesn't really work very well with what we're doing, just because we're dealing with full numbers, and of course trigonometric functions are typically dealing with multiples of pi. But we can in fact change our values, amplitude, a phase. If you're in electronics and you're studying different forms of trigonometry, then some of these will make sense. Phase offset, of course, and value offset. So now we're starting to look like an oscilloscope. And then we can add in a second modifier. And we can make it additive. And we can make it a cosine. And if I change this to 1, and this to 1, this to 0, and 0, and 0, 0. Change this to -1. It'll be flatline. Additive. So what we're doing is we're adding the two curves to each other and it becomes 0. We can change it to a few other different things like tangent, additive, and anyways, just some things you can play around with. Square root, let's make it positive, make it additive, and now can get an interesting looking effect there. Yeah, so that's another option we got. And then the last one is, oh, and again with the polynomials, let's go to just a basic x squared, and we can add a second one of those, and we'll make it an x cubed, and make it additive. And now we can see how adding two different curves to each other can have various effects. So basically this isn't really much fun because we're just adding an x squared component, which is the same as this component. But if we had something a little more complicated like that, and that, and let's just make this pi x, that adds those curves for us. So yeah, just something to play with.